Hello and welcome to another episode of my Productivity Mastery series. My name is Pullein and this week I'm going to give you 5 incredibly powerful questions that you can ask yourself whenever you find yourself stuck with a project or stuck with a goal. So let's get started with the first question. Now the first question is a classic David Allen getting things done question, and that question is, what's the next action? Quite often we end up with a project or a goal that has just hundreds or thousands of tasks. Actually, maybe not thousands, but you have hundreds of tasks. And when you get hundreds of tasks, you end up thinking, well, where do I start? How am I going to start this? Now, in that particular situation, you often find projects will stall simply because there's just too many next actions, too many steps to take. So to get yourself clear about how to get a project moving quicker is just to go through the list and just identify the very next action. Not 5 or 6 next actions, identify just the single next action that's going to move this project or move this goal forward. It's the classic GTD question. It's a powerful question, and all you have to do is ask, what's the next action? The second question I want to share with you is, what's stopping me from doing this? Now, this question often reveals a fear that you may have. So what's stopping me from doing this often can be a fear of making a mistake, a fear of failure, a fear of what other people might think, a fear of maybe extending yourself or stretching yourself a little bit too much financially. There's many reasons why you may not be doing the task. Now, in this question, what's stopping me from doing this, you often need to actually just be honest with yourself and just make that decision. Just decide, what is it that's actually stopping me from doing this? Now, sometimes something that's stopping you from doing it is quite simply because you don't have all the resources available just now. I mean, for example, I've just recently bought a car. Now, I would have loved to have bought a car earlier this year. I just didn't have the deposit that I wanted to buy the car. So I needed a few extra months in order to save enough money for the deposit. So that meant that I actually did have a next action. The next action was to make sure I was putting enough money away each month so that I could afford to pay the deposit on the car right now. So essentially that's what we did. So sometimes it's a resource issue. Sometimes the thing that's stopping you is related to a fear. And if it is a fear, you need to identify that fear. And then you need to ask the next question, which is, what am I afraid of? Now, this can be many, many things. We're afraid of what other people might think, which I've often felt is a really silly thing to do because, when you're on your final minutes of this valuable life that you have, what other people think of you, you'll realize is just not important. And there are other fears. Of course, there's the fear of failure, the fear of making a big mistake. All these things can be your fears. And what you need to do is to identify what that fear is. Now, oftentimes it could be the fear of success. Some people do have a fear of success. And whatever your fear is, you need to identify that fear. So the reason why you're not doing something is because you have a fear of doing it. Usually it's the fear of what other people might think of you or the fear of failure. In which case you ask the fourth question, which is, what's the worst thing? What's the very worst thing that could happen if it goes wrong? Now, I've got a classic example. 18 years ago, I made the decision, well, it's probably about 19 years ago now, I made the decision to come to Asia. Now, I chose Korea, and I came to Korea, and I left a job working in a law firm as a lawyer to become an English teacher in Korea. Now, all my friends back home, including my family, said I was absolutely crazy giving up a legal career to go and teach English. But it's something that deep down I really wanted to do. But of course, I had my fears. I had my worries. So I did sit down and I just asked that question, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? And I realized the worst thing that could happen was it'd be an utter and complete disaster, and what I could do was jump back on a plane and come back to the UK and find a job as a lawyer. It wouldn't have been difficult. I could have done that. But so I committed myself to going through with it. Now 18 years later, 18 and a half years later, I'm still in Korea. I've developed a wonderful job. I have a great business. I have some fantastic friends. I have a wonderful wife. If I had not come to Korea, I would never have met. So making that decision, there was a lot of fears. And I did have to ask that question. What is the worst thing that could happen? And I realized the worst thing that could happen was not as bad as what my brain was trying to tell me what it is. And remember, your brain is not necessarily going to be your best friend. The worst thing that could happen is you die. That's the worst thing that could happen. And as long as you're comfortable with that, then you will be able to do pretty much anything. So what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, people might laugh at me. Well, hey, let them laugh at you, because within like 24 hours, they will have forgotten about the reason why they were laughing at you. So the worst thing that could happen is never as bad as you think it might be. And the final question that you can ask yourself, and you should ask yourself, is anything that's stalled, anything that's not moving forward, is one, when am I going to do this? Now, this is a great question. If you've got a lot of tasks in your task manager, if you've got a lot of projects in your project notes file, and they're just not moving forward, sometimes we need to step back and just ask that question. When am I going to do this? Now, again, you need to be honest with yourself. Often I've got project lists, like right now in October, which is just around the corner, I start planning the next year, and I end up with a huge list of things that I want to do. Now, realistically, because of the time factor, I'm not going to be able to do all of them. So I have to go through the list and say, when am I going to do these? And quite often I would get rid of 75% of what's on that list. Now, it doesn't mean that I delete them. I just keep them in a master list and I can come back to it next year, round about October. But quite often you'll come across something, then you ask the question, when am I going to do this? You're probably going to have to, again, be honest and say, I'm never going to do this. It's wishful wanting to do, but I don't really have the passion or the motivation to do it. Well, that's great. You've been honest. Just put it on a master list and forget about it, and just work on the things that you know you are going to work on. You know, when am I going to do this is a great question, because they're right. I'm going to do this next month, and I'm going to be in a future episode, probably next week. I'm going to talk about something that I did called the 30-day challenge with my exercise, and I'll explain the story about that next time. But the reason why I got to that point, when am I going to do this? I said August, and I decided I'm going to do a 30-day challenge in August. And it was great because it got me motivated. It got the consistency, and it got me back into the groove to be able to get back into the exercise. And I'll explain all this next week. But it is a powerful question. When am I going to do this? So these 5 questions that will unstick any project or any goal that's stalled is, what's the next action? The classic GTD question. It's a great question to get things moving. What's the next action? Do that. What's stopping me from doing this? And this is going to uncover a fear. And again, you really have to be honest with yourself about what it is that's stopping you. Often it is a fear. If it is a fear, what am I afraid of? Ask that question. Just again, be so honest with yourself. If you're not honest with yourself, you're just fooling yourself. So just get really honest. What am I afraid of? And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be afraid of failure. And failure is a great way to learn. It's one of the best learning experiences you will have. So rather than looking at failure as a negative, you need to look at failure as a positive, because that's how you learn, that's how you grow, and that's how you find the solution to whatever it is you're trying to come up with. The next question to ask is, what is the worst thing that could happen? Because your brain is going to scare the life out of you. It's going to come up with all the worst case scenarios. You know, my family will disown me. My friends will leave me. I'll be destitute. I will be living on the streets. You know, it's not going to happen. It really isn't going to happen. As long as you keep moving forward and don't take too many risks, you are going to be absolutely fine. And the final question to ask yourself is, when am I going to do this? Make a commitment to yourself that I'm going to do this from the 1st of October and nothing is going to stop me. You know, make that commitment to yourself and make sure that you do it. Well, I hope you found this useful. Now, I did write about this also earlier this week. So if you do want to read a little bit more about this, I've put a link to that blog post in the show notes of this video, so you can have a read of the blog post. Well, thank you very much for watching this video, and it just remains for me now to wish you all a very, very productive week. Hello, thank you very much for watching my videos. Now, I have something exciting to tell you about. Recently, I have developed a brand new time management system. It's a system designed to manage your time in the 21st century. The world has changed a lot over the last 20 years. In fact, it's actually changed a lot this year. And what we need now is a system, a time management system that is very easy to use, easy to maintain, so that you can spend more of your time doing the work. And that's what the time sector system is all about. It's going to change your whole belief system about the way a time management system should work, because this focuses on when you are going to do the task. And let's be honest, it doesn't matter how motivated, inspired, or how urgent something is. If you don't have time to do it, it is never going to get done. And that's what this system is built around, getting your work done, so you can spend more of your time doing the things that you want to do. I hope you join me in this course. The full details of the course are in the show notes below, so please join me, and thank you very much for watching this brief video.